There's a slew of stuff to sign, huh? Good evening and welcome to the March 9th, 2020 Goffstown Select Board meeting. First up on the agenda, would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Where's Derek?
It's coming.
There he is. We already did the Pledge of Allegiance. So.
Sorry.
First up, of course, would be the acceptance and correction of the minutes, public and non-public on 2/24/2020, and then also on 3/2/2020.
Make a motion, we accept the Q24-2020 public and non-public, and the 3/2/2020 public and non-public.
Second.
Any discussion, comments?
Nothing.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. We have an announcement. There will be no road weight restrictions for the spring of 2020. This is requested by the town administrator. The Department of Public Works reviewed the historic temperature for this warm winter season, and the data does not warrant posting the road this year. DPW has also looked at the dirt roads. Those look fairly dry and do not appear to be rutting. DPW has concluded not to post any roads for 2020 spring season.
That's unusual.
That's very unusual. Does that mean we don't have any frost heaves? As a reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, March 10th, the polls at the Goffstown High School and Bartlett Elementary School will be open for town meeting ballot voting. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The town's website has a lot of great information about the items on the ballot tomorrow, including sample ballots for the town and school, the 2020 Voters Guide with information about the individual warrant articles, and also town budget information. Anybody have any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there was a traffic alert as well.
Oh, yes. The Goffstown Department of Public Works announces bridge work on Henry Bridge Road currently scheduled for around 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 10th, requiring intermittent alternating one-way traffic. Delay should be expected. Please use caution when driving by the work zone. Please contact Goffstown Department of Public Works, 603-497-3617 with any questions. Thank you. Again, that's tomorrow morning. I'm not going to start this until gonna take more than 5 minutes, isn't it?
For the presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also alerted the committee members that it was going to be at 6:15, so there may be a few more.
So why don't you start on the town administrator's report?
Okay, thank you. At tab 5A, you have your meeting schedule for this week. Again, tomorrow, the town election polls open at 7 and close at 7. Wednesday at 9 a.m. at the police station is Highway Safety Committee.
I got a conflict with that.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody be available to sit in on that for me.
I can sit there for an hour, because we have an appointment at 10, right?
Yes.
I think take longer than an hour, Mark?
Nope, well, it's a 9:30 appointment, but
Oh.
I'll do my best to get there for 10. How's that? If you start, I'll get
Okay.
there. Okay?
All right, I'll be there for 9.
Thursday at 7 p.m. planning in this room.
Yes, I'll be here.
Next page, you have your consent agenda. You have employee status reports for firefighter 2 EMT discharged due to inactivity. A call firefighter 2 to call firefighter 2/EMT merit increase. You have the annual facility report for the solid waste facility that needs a signature of the chairman or designee. You have the recycling services agreement. This was voted on February 10th, but we neglected to put it in the signature folder that night. That's between Goffstown and Casella Recycling. It needs a signature of the chair. You have event permits for Goffstown Rotary Club Car Show on June 6th from 9 to 2 on Parsons Drive, and also Manchester PMC Kids Ride, June 14th from 9 a.m. to noon at St. Anselm College.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by
Chet?
Chet. I've been going a million miles an hour today. Seconded by Chet. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none, motion passes.
On the next page, you have your assessor recommendations, which are quite lengthy.
Do you need to read all those?
They are posted in the one online if you find that sufficient. And so they are published out there so people can see them. But we've got veterans credits recommended, veteran and disabled recommended. There's two. So the veterans credit, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those recommended. Veterans and disabled veteran, there's 2 recommended. There's a veteran and elderly exemptions recommended. Elderly exemptions, there are 4 recommended. 6 solar exemptions, 5 land use change taxes, and 5 land use tax warrants. Those relate, basically send out the bill for those land use change tax. And those are all recommended by the assessor and
Motion to
available.
approve. Yep, sorry, Derek.
And they're available in the online packet.
Thank you, apologize. Motion to approve the assessor's recommendations as presented.
Second.
Motion by Collins, seconded by Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none. I hope you don't mind that I did it that way instead of going through
No.
and reading every one individually.
At tab 5D, the department heads at your request reviewed the fee schedules, and you have an updated fee schedule that's broken down for every department. In the right column of each page, you'll see a proposed change only if there is a change or if there's some changing in the language. This will require a posted public hearing with at least 7 days' notice. So if you want to review those this evening, and we've got most of the department heads here that can make any comments on those or answer any specific questions, and then we could post for a public hearing on the 23rd.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and go through these, and I'm gonna, I'll call the, can we do it in 5 minutes? If not, we'll suspend it until we do the,
There's not that many of them.
no, but let me, is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, let's go through the fee schedule, starting with, we'll just look at the changes, is that okay?
Yep.
If I understand, the first one's reval,
Yeah, so the assessing department has the ability to create custom vision reports. Previously, they would charge $13 for every 15-minute increment, plus 50 cents per page. They are looking to change for just a flat fee of $35 for up to 20 fields, plus $1 for each additional field. And then they would send the file as an Excel sheet electronically.
you wanna take these up one at a time? Anybody have a problem with that one?
Good.
Questions? No? Move on?
The next 2 are under planning for a conceptual site plan and site plan waiver. The ZBA and planning board fees are covered under the land use statutes. And the only reason I wanted to pull them off the master fee schedule is if the planning board or zoning board choose to make a change, it'd be in 2 different places. So what we would do is we could either put C application or C land use, something to that effect, rather than have the physical fee in here. Because my fear is if people change in a few years, they update their fees, but it doesn't get updated on the master fee.
So those fees are covered by separate statute.
Those are set by separate statute, and those are set by the planning board and the zoning
Yeah,
board.
so-
So this is more or less duplication almost.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
And then the next one, you have sign permits. The change here is to move the residential small business office 1 and residential small business office 2. Those are 2 zoning districts along Mast Road. Move those down and group them with the commercial signs. But otherwise maintain a non-residential use in a residential district as $25, and a non-residential use in the commercial districts and the residential small business office to $50.
Any discussion, questions?
No issues with that?
We'll go right ahead, Derek.
Property tax warrant was set at $350, but that was previously based on 787 pages. It's currently 846 pages double-sided, so that is to cover the cost of printing that. If they did a per-page cost, it would actually be $428, but thought it'd be more reasonable to just set that at $400 and then revisit that if need to in the future.
How often do you get that request?
I would have to ask, I don't know, because it's such a large document, I'm not sure.
Okay.
The next is town clerk landlord agent filing fee, was on the master list was $3. That was actually changed in 2009, on December 18th, 2009 by the select board to $15, but it had never been copied over again. That problem with sometimes you have fees in different places. That was never caught on the master list. And then you've got the town clerk articles of agreement. This has $5, and according to Kathy, this has been charged since she started in 2008, but it was never listed on the master fee schedule. And then finance townwide, we wanted to put a return check. We do have a return check, which is spelled out in RSA 6:11-A. So it's $25 for the return check and $7 for the bank fee and collection costs. But that was never spelled out again on the master fee list. Town hall, we removed room 107, the room across the hall that was converted and no longer available. And then Grassmere Town Hall was previously a donation, this is for facility use, a donation to the Grassmere Town Hall Restoration Fund. That was an unspecified donation. Now, what we're proposing is $10 per meeting, similar to what Parks and Rec is doing for the meeting room, and then $25 per hour with a 2-hour minimum for the second floor theater and auditorium. Again, that went to the HCC a couple of months ago, and they just really would like to see the room start to
Yeah,
get
they want
used.
some activity with it to get some.
So they wanted to keep it relatively low to start off. There's no changes. Let's see, there is a note. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see a change there. On the next one, the fire department made a change to special detail rates. For vendor rate for regular goes from $45 to $50, and rate for a supervisor goes from $50 to $55.
Have we set up a special fund like we did with police for that?
No.
Should we?
We can talk with the finance director and the fire chief and explore whether that's, if that's something you would want to. My guess is any revenue for EMS special details goes into the EMS fund already.
But that fund, that wouldn't be considered here on these last two lines.
No, it would not be. This is for fire, special detail rates. So, we can look at that. I'll put a note to
Let's
look
get a-
at how much revenue we
I
actually
was gonna
pull
say,
in.
let's get a dollar value on it and
Okay.
then see if it's worth doing that.
Okay.
And that's it, right?
Then we go on to the next pages, are fee changes for the police department. They are no longer charging for testing, for patrol officer testing. They have changes in their special detail rate. The vendor rate goes from $60.50 to $65. The officer rate goes from $43 to $50. A supervisor from $46 to $52. And then, again, it wasn't previously listed on the master schedule, but there is a special detail administration fee of what's currently being charged, $17.50, adopted in 2013. That would be reduced to $15.
So how do they come up with those increases? How do they justify them?
I think they looked at the market, what they're getting for their hourly rate, as well as the number of officers, some of the younger officers that those, we don't pay retirement on those, but some of the officers that have been around and were vested prior to 2011, it does go into those.
Right. Good evening, Board.
Evening.
So we did a market analysis in the statewide, it's $47 an hour. In our area, Hillsborough County, Merrimack County, we've looked at some different police departments, and the average was $49. So we looked at it as we're a little bit below fair market value. The vendors are still paying that overall cost. We decided to try to keep it at the vendor cost of 65. And the other part is exactly what the town administrator was talking about. We have our younger generation in this new retirement system that does not benefit to the retirement. There's currently two, I don't want to say officers, but sergeants in our agency that still benefit from that retirement, that when they do take a detail, it'll go into the retirement. That's it. Once they retire, none of us are in that retirement system anymore where we benefit from that. So we're trying to look at recruitment efforts where other agencies are now offering, if you're in this retirement, we'll give you less. If you're in this retirement, we'll give you a little bit more of a bump to offset the cost of not getting in your retirement. We chose not to differentiate that only because we have two people in that old retirement system, so we chose just to go up a few dollars and try to make it more fair market value for recruitment retention issues.
Okay. Anybody got any questions for Chief?
I have one. So for the special details, do you guys ever do based on equipment that's being used for those special details? Does that impact
So
cost at all?
the only thing that we use for special equipment would be our vehicles, and we currently charge $15 an hour if the vendor wants it. So we'll charge them to 60, well, in this case, it's 60.50 an hour, plus $15 an hour for the vehicle. And that helps to cover the cost and the wear and tear of the vehicle for the gas.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
And Chief, while I have you up here, the false alarm billing, what amount did you have for that? Because it looks like that field got overwritten.
We had 100 for fourth alarm, 100 for fifth alarm, 6 was 250, and seventh was 500.
And you're maintaining that?
Yes, and it's,
Okay.
my understanding was that was the ordinance.
Okay.
It was driven by the board's decision.
Okay, so I think that note on the last line of the changes should be
Yeah.
crossed out.
Yeah, I see it. Anybody got anything else?
And then on the next page, again, that first top line should be crossed out. It looks like when the reval one was put in, that it got copied to multiple sheets. But commercial trash was not previously listed, so that DPW director asked that that be listed for 5 cents per pound. For household hazardous waste, that would change, he's just changing the description there, maintaining the same amount. Further down, mattress, box springs, and bed springs and sleeper sofa springs were previously two different categories, kind of combining those to mattress, box springs, sleeper sofa springs each, and there's a change from a flat rate to 7 cents per pound. Tanks for gas, water, and hot water would go from $5 to disposal is free. And then the last one is just to make a change to language when the scale is offline, not necessarily broken, but offline.
Anybody got anything on that page?
Nope.
And then the final page are just those, the Parks and Recs fees that came to you 2 weeks ago, that the Parks and Rec director presented to you and were recommended by the Parks and Rec Commission.
Anything else? Need a
So I need a
motion?
motion to move it to public hearing,
Yes.
schedule a public hearing.
Second.
When are you gonna schedule that?
I was gonna schedule it Monday, March 23rd at 6:30 PM.
Good. Anything else? Okay, tonight we have scheduled the Ad hoc Glen Lake Waterfront Committee. We have a presentation of the final report and recommendations.
This one.
You gonna do an overhead presentation?
Yes. Use this, but you do have a laser pointer there if you
Okay.
want.
You got room, Mark?
Oh, sorry.
Don't bite me.
Yeah, if you want to just turn that front one off.
My name is Andrew Cataract. I'm a Goffstown resident. I was elected chair of the Glen Lake Waterfront Ad hoc Committee. Do want to thank the Select Board for the opportunity to be on the committee and for pulling the committee together. It was really a great opportunity to have some community engagement around Glen Lake waterfronts. We all got to review and comment, and we pulled together the report, which you have. And I'm going to go through a presentation that really hits the high levels from that. So kind of just want to talk about committee overview first, the priority recommendations that we had, and then the specific recommendations by each waterfront, and then answer any questions. Before I start, I just wanted to hit on what the original charter was. So the mission of the committee is to evaluate all town-owned properties, infrastructure, and operations on lands owned under the control of the town of Goffstown along the shores of Glen Lake, and to make recommendations to the select board for improvements and/or changes. The objectives was to maintain natural resources and to provide the appropriate level of public access. And our deliverables was to pull a report together by February 2020. I do want to thank everyone that was on the committee. It was really, there was a lot of committee engagement, so it made it a fun committee to be on, and it was a productive committee. We had 5 community members, 3 of which live on Glen Lake. And then we had 7 individuals from the town that were on the committee, which was wonderful, and I do want to thank them. They're in the back here. We had Lieutenant Bill Connor, Rick Wilhelm, and Lieutenant Jeff Pinard. And so it was a lot of engagement, and I do want to thank Daniel Karen. She was the secretary. She took all the minutes, which was super helpful, and Jack Carbonell, the vice chair. So what the committee did is we held a number of public meetings. As the report said, I believe there was 6 public meetings. We did water site visits from the water, and then from the land, we walked the sites. And then we also did listening sessions where we set up, a little table, had some survey stuff, and talked to people that were using the waterfronts, and it was publicly noticed, the listening sessions. And then from all that data, we pulled together a SWOT of each one of these locations, and then we kind of prioritized what the highest priorities are down to the lowest priorities. The committee did decide that we had to define what was the Glen Lake waterfront, so basically we went from dam to dam. And so you can see the green areas, with the exception of the rail trail, were the areas that we looked at. And this laser pointer?
Yes.
Shoot at my eye or something. Okay. So we did not really look back here, but so it was from dam to dam right there. There's a little parcel there, there's a parcel there, sewer pumping station, the island. This would be the Park and Recs Department, and then the Glen Lake waterfront. So the high-level priority recommendations that the committee came to was the need for a capital reserve fund. There is a maintenance that needs to be done, there's erosion, there's improvements that could be had, and so in discussions, we came up with the idea of some type of a capital reserve fund so that that can be drawn upon when needed. Second would be a review of all the town-owned properties for that erosion, for maintenance, for whatever, let me pull up my list here. To ensure public safety, to ensure access to the waterfront, and to stabilize and preserve the shoreline. And then the last thing was to create an ongoing maintenance plan so that these get regularly reviewed and regularly done. specific recommendations, and I think I have some pictures here, for the Glen Lake is, we kind of prioritized it in the report, recommendations, other things, and then future improvements or potential uses. One at the Glen Lake waterfront, and this actually came from, people knew about it on the committee and from the listening sessions. I guess the boat ramp at the very end is either broken or it's moved, and so when you go to drive off, you can't see it, but there's a big drop off and it's hard to get boats in and out. We also looked at the signage there. While there's signage there, it could be improved, made clearer, maybe updated, a lot of words on some of the signs, and maybe it could be just more specific. Some of the general maintenance that we talked about for public safety and for use just needs to be reviewed, and this is an example of that tiered step and how the water has kind of undercut that. I think it was originally designed for erosion control and access for car top boats, but people are just kind of like going around it now, and with those metal rods, it may even be dangerous. Park and Recs Department, what we looked at there was improving the watercraft access. From the listening sessions that we did, people really enjoyed launching from that spot. It was quieter than going to the Glen Lake waterfront. There's some signage issues there also that, while I think it's clear, apparently other people don't think it's clear. This is currently where you would launch the boat, and if you had a watercraft, it's not really an ideal spot, and you can see the erosion that's going on there. This is the guardrail that you can see, and the guardrail is really back here where there used to be a guardrail. There is no guardrail back there. And then we talked about some improving some of the signage. On the Glen Lake Island, we really didn't have any recommendations there. It's out here in the middle of the lake, right there. I think the general idea is not to really not draw any more attention to the island than it already has. It's currently being maintained. The Boy Scouts have been using it, and when they go out there, they kind of pick it up. And so the idea was just leave it alone, don't draw any more attention to it. And stop me if you have questions, please. At the pumping station, it again came down to more of a maintenance of it. It's a beautiful spot on the river to launch a small watercraft. I think from the sewer department's stance, they really don't want to draw any more attention to the area, so any recommended improvements, we weren't really looking to improve or call out the use of this anymore, but there is some significant erosion going on. While we were there, somebody did pull up with a trailer, and they actually launched a boat from there, which was surprising, and the guy just pulled the boat right in here and pushed it off, and he was there with his family and he enjoyed it, but I don't think that's the right type of use here. So if there was some type of erosion control, we might want to say, car top watercraft only or something like that. And the other thing that was unclear around signage is that there's, this is some more of the erosion to show, and it just comes off this hill here, comes all down here, and it comes right here and just has washed this out to a fairly steep gully. And then it's unclear around signage. Most of the people that were here were actually bringing their boats down, because there were some other people with kayaks, and they would bring the boats down, launch them, and then they would go back up to this spot and park, which you would think is a parking spot, but what we, through the committee, learned is that this is really a parking spot for the pumping station, and they would like to have access to this if there was an emergency. So, if anything, if you don't want people parking there, you should let them know, because it certainly seems like the logical spot for people to park, and they were doing that. They were launching down here and then driving back up and parking here.
So, and just
Yeah.
real quick, so is it up, should the sewer department put no parking signs there?
That was one of the suggestions.
Okay.
I think that the problem then it becomes, where do people park? Because this is the logical spot to park there. So if you put no parking there, they're gonna park down here. So I don't really know what the answer to that is, but the request was that they need access to this building, and people are parking there because it's the only paved spot to park. And I park there and would walk down and, launch my canoe and then bring it back up there so as not to block down there. The Mill Street property, just to show you where this is, so again, there's a little parcel over here that the town took, and the dam is right here in the Mill Pond Dam. So it does create a nice little way to get below the river. It's beautiful if you've ever gone up this spot and canoed or kayaked. But it is in I guess I would say a village area. I kind of redlined where it is. It kind of comes right off this street, and it's roughly about that size. In the listening sessions, we did talk to people, which was interesting, about, because the question is what is the use for this? Clearly, people were not a fan of having any parking spaces put there. So there's a parcel there. They said, we would rather not have people parking on site here. But they mentioned a number of times where people were walking somewhere from up here with kayaks and canoes, and they would walk down and basically cross these properties to launch. So people are looking for a spot to launch boats over here. Whether this is the ideal spot or not, I don't know, but that's where we would recommend you study the potential. It's pretty steep.
It's very steep.
It would need some improvements. It would need to be, specifically called out. There is a house next door here, so the parcel is literally like right here and halfway in between this person's driveway. And, they were very against any public use of this, although the town owns it. So one of the recommendations is to, establish, an idea was if we took out the pavement and planted grass there, it would be a lot more clear that this is not a parking spot. The person who owns the house in this photo to the right, does have a very small parking spot. Do we need all this space for an access? That's where we'd recommend you guys should study it more and come up with a plan. And this is from the water looking up, so the parcel is like kind of here and over here. And that's the view from there. So it is a beautiful view. Some of the other recommendations, so in the report we had a spot where he just said other recommendations, things you should think about. One of them, and I forgot to mention it, where the Park and Recs property is, I guess there's the land between the actual, where the high water mark is and the actual level of the lake is owned by Eversource. And I guess that makes it a challenge if we were to look to do any improvements there, you would have to go to Eversource and ask them to do that. So one of the requests with regards to Park and Recs is, get some type of access to that so you don't have to go to Eversource. And then the other one is there's these two parcels here that are being used under private ownership, and it makes it difficult for the town to maintain and enforce or go out and make sure that it's not being destroyed. And so one of the suggestions we had is maybe the town should seek to acquire those properties and do something interesting with them, make them into a park, but have a little bit more signage around what the uses are. Certainly since the parking area has been here, I think there's a lot more pressure out on that water out there. And erosion is happening as a result of all that use. And that's it, unless I missed anything. Any other?
Kelly?
Thank you for that. I have some questions about the way you're prioritizing the recommendations, or if you have.
Sure.
So, we have the current structures that are there already. We have potentially other places to put sort of access points or fix up access points. But is the erosion, on the large boat ramp is that something we need to address more quickly? Is it more the signage? Do we kind of know how?
So you're talking at like the individual level of each property?
Yeah, because, Wonsa needs types of things, like things that might be nice to have versus stuff we should address more quickly.
Yeah, so in here, the way we had kind of structured it was, recommendations, and when we say the recommendations, those were kind of in that priority order. So recommendation, boat ramp deterioration, that was the first one. Second is improved signage. This is Glen Lake that I'm talking about. One of the biggest things we heard was, non-residents parking there. And so increasing the parking fine through the ordinance up to something that makes it, I guess it's $20, I believe, or $25. And people almost see that as the cost of parking there for a beautiful day at the lake, as opposed to, I gotta pay a fine. And so if we made it high enough that they didn't have that mentality, they may not park there. So I think the intent was in the report that the top recommended items were what was first. The boat ramp is a problem.
I'm gonna ask Carl something. That boat ramp, was that put in by the state?
Yes. Yeah, you have to bear in mind that the improvements that were done there were done 20 years ago. So you're talking about timber posts and timber guardrail, they've reached their useful life. They need to be, a lot of this is safety stuff, safety issues. There's those concrete plank boat ramps, they're connected with steel links, and those are starting to rot away, and when that happens, the planks break apart. At the end, there's a big hole there that's from people power loading. When they try and power load their boats up onto trailers, it scours out the end of the ramp. So a lot of these things are safety-related maintenance issues that really need to be attended to fairly quickly.
So when that ramp goes in by the state, is that, once that's done, does that put the onus of maintenance on the town? Or does the state come in and maintain it? Or can we ask the state to come in and maintain it? Do we know?
Well, the way it works is that the state comes in and builds it, and they turn it over to the town to maintain it.
Okay.
Just an interesting side note, that boat ramp is open 24/7. That's because it was built with state, in fact, actually some
Right.
federal monies that came through the state. So it has to be open 24/7 for the general public.
Even though it's now becomes ours to maintain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the next biggest one is over at Parks and Rec. That's a safety issue there as well. People trying to come down those steep rutted areas, trying to get down and launch boats. It's a great place to launch watercraft. It's just very difficult to get down there. Somebody's gonna get hurt trying to carry a canoe or a kayak down that embankment.
Is there any plans, that you're on the Parks and Rec Commission for Parks and Rec, to do anything there?
No, not at this point. Is there, Rick? Not that I'm aware of.
I have some thoughts.
Well, we're talking about plans.
No plan.
When Rick gets a thought.
And then I have another.
Go ahead, Kelly.
I know we had talked about the parking at Glen Lake before, and that was confusing to people on how to get the passes. I think the PD last year did a great kind of PSA on parking at the waterfront, but we had discussed the difficulties of that being the transfer station sticker, and do we potentially move it to somehow being involved with town hall, or what that, I mean, is that something that we need to look at too, or do we feel like our current structure setup was working well?
I can comment from
Go ahead.
our,
Sure,
our
that'd be great.
interviews and stuff. Nobody seemed to think it was an issue,
Okay.
really. From talking to the people at the listening session and members on the committee, they didn't feel that that was a burden. We had talked about, a lot about, do we try to find some other way where they go to the library or they go to the, and it just, it didn't come up as an issue. And I think where the parking is, it's just, the signage is just kind of unclear. Parking didn't seem to be an issue. Certainly, it was more of the enforcement of that. When you do, if you give someone a $20 ticket, they're just gonna stay there anyways. And so, raising the price seemed to be, and there was also the signage around, which is in the, I don't know if we went into as detail, but the school, Glen Lake School. It's unclear there if people can park or not. The ordinance says they can, but there's no definition between where the public can park and where school-only parking. And then, because there's, I may be kind of going off on this, Officer Bernard, but if people park on the grass, the ordinance doesn't say no parking on the grass. And so the question is, can I ticket them for parking on the grass or not? So unless you have a sign that says designated parking only between these spots.
So Andy, would you recommend that maybe Collis, seeing he was on the committee, get together with the school and
Yes.
put something together?
Yes, that was one of the
Some
recommendations.
signage
Yeah,
and,
let me, if I can just elaborate a
Yep.
little on that. Yeah, we thought that the parking was working fairly well.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, there's always those handful of stupid, crazy, ultra hot days during the summer when the place just gets bombarded with people, but in the past, when we put in a call to the police department, they would send a patrol by, and they would ticket. But again, the problem is the ticket didn't mean anything. It wasn't substantial enough for people to serve as a deterrent for people not parking there. We did talk about working cooperatively with the school to identify some number of spaces, we don't know how many and or where, on the entrance to the kindergarten. And work with them to identify some of those just to allow a little bit of additional parking down there. But clearly, there needs to be some patrolling down there and enforcement. There needs to be a bigger deterrent for illegal
and
parking.
do we know how many tickets we wrote there last year or the year before, or the
I do
average?
believe we had that, but I don't remember.
I believe it's in the minutes, but I don't have it on me. I can find it.
I think we were close to 90, was it 90 somewhere? Less than
I don't have my keyboard.
But the challenge is that if people don't pay it, or they'll stay there for $20, so.
No, I understand that, but I was just curious how many people are parking illegally.
Yeah.
You know,
It was interesting during the listening sessions that, you know, there was a couple people there that had stickers and a couple people that didn't have stickers and, you know.
So, yeah, it was 85 parking tickets issued, 12 warnings from May to October 1st of 2019.
85.
I mean, it used to be, aside from parking in a handicap space, it used to be one of the highest parking tickets in town. It was a base one, and then if you didn't pay it within a certain amount of time, it doubled. But that's still not enough.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Anything else from the committee?
I think, if I can just add one more thing, I think one of the biggest recommendations is to establish a capital reserve fund, because we need to be putting money away, so that we need to go in and rebuild the boat ramp, rebuild the guardrails, redesignate spaces or whatever. There needs to be a pot of money somewhere we go to, so. But I think that was one of the primary.
Yeah, I
Recommendations.
agree. You know, going back to, Kelly, your question about, you know, what is the priority at each spot? That's where we did have these priority recommendations. It's, you know, establish a fund, you know, review each one, because what we think may not be the most important, we did try to lay it out that way. And then the maintenance plan needs to be done so that these things can continually be.
You had another question?
No, it can wait. I was talking about
Just an
parking.
FYI, when we rebuilt that in 2000, took a lot of photos of what it looked like before the rebuild in 2000. I gave a big box. I think I left it with you, Derek. There's some pretty interesting historical photos in there. You'd be amazed at what it used to look like. It was the Wild West.
Good enough. Anything else?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate all your efforts. Make sure the committee knows we thank them
Derek, what do I
also.
do here? Close down,
We don't
shut it
think we
off.
called you.
Yeah, I know, it's just my job. That's what I get paid to do.
Thank you very much.
So do we have any sort of, like, what's next steps with this in
Well,
general?
I mean, it sounds like the next step would be looking, we can't do anything about a capital reserve fund now.
Right.
I mean, it's too late. But we can look at parking fines. That's one of the things we can look at. And I don't know, we don't have, depending on what happens tomorrow, depends on what your budget looks like, what our budget looks like for next year.
Right.
And I don't know, or for this year, I don't know if there's anything that we can do on short money. I don't, you know, just, I think what we have to do is maybe start to fix the fines and then start a capital reserve if we want to start maintaining the lake area.
Yeah.
And I think we need to, sooner rather than later, start conversations with the school about using some area at the kindergarten property for some number of spaces. That would be designated, and the ordinance would say you have to park within a designated space. So the school can benefit from that, because if they're not parking in the designated space, then we can ticket and tow.
Okay, can you, would you be willing to spearhead that?
Sure.
So we'll have Collis, get together with, I don't know, with their grounds people or superintendent.
Maybe if you reach out to Scott.
Yeah, Scott.
Again, a lot is gonna depend on what they get for a vote as well, because they have the the portable classrooms on the ballot, so they could be under construction all summer over there, with a lot of earth moving that's going on as well, so.
Yeah, and I think, Collis, do you think there was anything, or the committee as a whole, did they come up with anything that was immediate safety concern or an immediate signage issue?
Did Andy already leave? He did. I can't think of one specific item that we said needs to be done right now.
Okay.
Get DPW down there today
Yeah.
and start work on it.
Obviously, we have some room to do long-term
Right.
kind of planning with this, but just for this season, if there's anything, you know, we should be tackling right up front. Just want to make sure.
Well, I think the
Depending
parking
on after
thing, the
tomorrow.
parking thing is probably something we can tackle now.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then,
I just meant
again,
safety-wise.
the sewer department, if they wanna make sure nobody's parking there, they can put a couple of signs up in their driveway down there.
We'll pass the report and the recommendation along to
I
the
don't
sewer
even know,
commissioners.
we may even have some no parking signs, I'm not sure. Adam can take a look,
If they need them.
yeah, so,
But I certainly want to thank Andy and all the members of the committee. They did a
Absolutely.
great job. They were very receptive to everybody who wanted to have input. It was a great collective coming together of the minds, and it was a great process. And collectively, when you look at all of the town-owned waterfront properties, it's a lot of property. It's a lot of resources, and it's a great resource for the community, so it was a good effort.
and we don't talk about, I know we don't talk much about the river, but we have a boat ramp down there also,
Yeah,
that
we do.
people don't realize that it's there, so. It's not the Manchester one. So next on our agenda, I believe, is the overnight travel request.
Yes, at tab 5E, you'll see that this is a travel request for the finance director and accountant to attend a two-day training conference in North Conway. This is the New Hampshire Government Finance Officers Association, to be held in May. It goes over a variety of different training opportunities. This was budgeted in the 2020 in the 2020 budget. So I would, maybe if you make it contingent on passing of the budget tomorrow, that way they can register.
Okay, I don't know if that, oh, okay. I'm just wondering if it's, when you're in that type of situation with the budget, if it's not good to go in and find out all the little
Or I guess the other option is,
nooks
if
and crannies that you can find money, you know?
the other option is if you approve it, and then if we're left looking, at least they've got the approval for the overnight travel, and then we'll just have to see whether we let them register or not.
Okay. Motion?
Motion to approve the overnight travel request, the finance director and the accountant to attend the annual NHGFOA conference in North Conway, in May 2020, depending on the outcome of the budget recommendations. We'll see what happens.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Kelly. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
At tab 5F, you have recommendations from the Economic Development Council. They met last week on the 4th, and they made a recommendation to the Select Board, appoint the following members. Reappoint Gregory Rodriguez to a full member for a term of 2020 to 2023. Appoint Ellen Vermakowitz to a full member for term 2020 to 2023. And then appoint Mark Stevens to an alternate member for 2020 to 2023.
Motion to approve the appointments as presented.
Can I ask
Second.
a question?
Go ahead, second it, go ahead.
Why didn't these go on the ballot?
The EDC is an appointed board, so it's not elected
Fully?
position. Fully
Yeah, the
appointed.
whole thing's appointed, appointed by the board, select board. And Chet, you're on that committee, right?
Yep.
And you're good with these recommendations?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the motion was by Mark, was it Mark or Collis?
Collis. I
Collis,
seconded.
seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. And we're on to old business, so the Manchiks. How we doing on the Wallace Road roundabout?
VHB has almost all the information gathered. They hope to have everything to us on the 17th of next week. So they're finalizing all their construction estimates and their technical memo and everything. they'll most likely meet with staff one more time and then be coming forward to the select board with that.
So it sounds like when you say construction, that they're anticipating doing some major renovation there, or minor? Have you seen it?
We've done both levels. We've done some short-term. Because this was done with NHDOT planning funds, we focused on some short-term fixes as well as some long-range, big-scale stuff as well. So they're finalizing up those construction cost estimates to give an idea, and then we'll have them in to make a presentation to the board.
Okay. Personnel plan revisions?
Yeah, we'll be talking at that department heads to, again, we're trying to just make sure we align those with all the department head SOGs and SOPs, so we're not creating any conflicting policies.
Now, whereas we've got contracts coming up, isn't it kind of important that we get that ahead of the contracts? Or are you just assuming this is only gonna be for non,
I think the only thing that we might want to talk about before we get into contract negotiations is if the board wants to make any major changes to vacation carryover, anything with accrual leave or sick bank, if there's anything that you're looking for to make any major changes on whether you go to a rolling accrual system. So if there is something that the board wants to do, yes, we would want to have that information that you want to do that with non-union, so we go into the two contracts that are up this year as well.
Do we have an estimated when we'll get to see any of these? Can we see the red lines now? I mean,
I can share, we probably get the conditional offers of employment template. We can also give you a few different options for vacation and vacation carryover, as well as the department head annual review process. A little bit, want to, again, make sure we're dovetailing in the info tech policies with all the SOPs and SOGs. So those are a little bit further away, but I think I can start releasing some of those.
yeah, I just
too.
want to start crossing stuff off
Yep.
the list if we can.
okay, then we have the fire department application not yet submitted. We anticipate doing that.
These were the ones that were presented on February 24th, and the board voted to authorize the fire department to make application. So I just added those to the grant matrix, so you know that they're out there.
And vehicle repairs, we only have the two vehicles out, 352 and 353.
Right now, yes. Yep.
Anybody got anything else? Motion?
Motion to go in the non-public section under RSA 91-A:3, Roman 2B, hiring, and D, realty.
Second.
Motion by Collins, seconded by Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, seeing none? That'll conclude our public portion of tonight's meeting. Let me, one more thing. Is there anybody here for public comment? Seeing none. That'll conclude our public portion of the select board meeting for March 9th. Thank you.
Thank you.